But never mind, we continue this coverage and we'll get back Taoyuan and Sean Caleb's as soon as possible. One of China's most impoverished villages has become one of its best models for success. Locals in Zhangzhuang village tell our reporter Sun Ye that how they are getting rid of poverty, especially in just the last 5 years.
Sesame oil, that's what turned life around for 32-year-old Yan Chunguang. Just 5 short years ago, his family of 5 lived below the poverty line. They had to get by on less than $3,000 for the entire year.
We were able to meet our very basic needs like food, but we'd go for years without buying any new clothes, and I remember feeling embarrassed for not dressing up, even for Chinese New Year.
Target startup loans and poverty alleviation policies have helped him since, but he has to find the right way to make them work.
I can only work with what I have and what I'm sure that I can do, and I also know that tourism and clean energy business are the trends. Sesame oil and salt mix were what we always had in the 1990s, so I wanted to start with them.
These products now bring him at least $14,000 a year. He now has money for other investments and clothes whenever he feels like a change. Yan's village also had little to start with. Its environment was less than ideal. It took years and a massive greening campaign to cure the region of ravaging sandstorms so people could then go about trying to better their lives. The Zhangzhuang village has now turned a local tourist attraction. Every family here is pooling their own strength to build their own riches. Wang Weiping used to bake and sell steam breads for a living.
I'd get up at 1 o'clock in the morning and work until evening. Now I rent out part of our house as a homestay and cook for guests. They're mostly visiting families and students. It's easier and makes me more money.
The province top officials say building a business around each one's strong suits is a good way to rid oneself of poverty. Wang Guosheng, the province party secretary, says poverty alleviation succeeds when everyone shares in the growth. That can only happen when people are included in all the industries that boost economy, from tourism to food. Henan province still has 1 million people that struggle with poverty. But following Zhangzhuang's example, they may rise above it soon. Sun Ye, CGTN, Zhangzhuang Village, Henan Province.
The Liangshan Autonomous Prefecture remains one of the most underdeveloped areas in China. As part of the National Poverty Alleviation Campaign, local authorities have built new houses for villagers who used to live in adobe shacks and rolled out programs to help them increase family income. Meng Qingsheng takes us to one village in Xide County.
It's a new kitchen and a new way of cooking potatoes. This family in Aho village moved into this new house a year ago. Along with the relocation come new lifestyle changes.
In the past, we just boiled whole potatoes and ate them with pepper. But last year, government workers came to us and taught us how to cook potato in different ways. The taste is much better. They also built new houses for us and set up power lines.
Guoli Wugemo is the third of the 7 children in the family. She showed us her new room on the 2nd floor. The 20-year-old has just been admitted to a college in the provincial capital, Chengdu City. She told us it's a rare case in a village that used to be overshadowed by poverty and gender injustice.
Villagers here believe it was useless to send girls to school. They even doubted my parents' support for us to get educated, as in their view, girls will eventually be married to another family.
The village lies among these mountains. It's a typical environment for Yi ethnic people to reside here in Liangshan. To improve their living standards, local departments helped relocate over 70 families to this new residential compound, well equipped with amenities. We followed Wu Ge to the family's old house about 1 kilometer away. They come back regularly to feed the livestock. This is where the family used to live before the relocation started. It's very simply equipped. This is the bedroom, and that is a warehouse. And this pit was the family's kitchen. In the past, they put firewood into it and cooked everything here. The life improvement here comes mainly as a result of cash crop farming and animal husbandry. With increased family incomes, the whole village got out of poverty in 2017.
The next goal of Aho Village is not only to increase families' incomes, but also to promote the growth of agricultural tourism. We plan to build it into a more beautiful and comfortable place for locals to live and prosper.
For Boli Wu Ge, however, her future goes far beyond her mountainous hometown. As she told us, though Aho Village may develop quickly into prosperity, it remains a familiar place that she wants to escape from. Meng Qingsheng, CGTN, Liangshan, Sichuan Province.
And now let's cross live to my colleagues Tao Yuan and Sean Calebs in Xide County in Liangshan Autonomous Prefecture. So hello there, we just watched this report from exactly where you are. Tell us more about your first-hand observation.
Hello, Pandong. First of all, let me apologize for the sound issue. On the technological side of things, we're dealing with a lot here. And we have a great show lined up for you, so stay tuned. But before that, I just want to give you a little bit of background information on the location where we are right now. We're, like you said, we're at the Liangshan Autonomous Prefecture in southwest China's province, Sichuan Province. Yi is one of the 55 ethnic minorities of China living predominantly in this region. There are people of music and dance. They're rich in culture and history, 1,700 years of history. But they also live in this area tucked away in China's remote mountainous region. So to this day, this region remains one of the poorest in this region, and many people here are still living in adobe homes without electricity, running water, or modern toilets.
Yeah, and when we talk about the 800 million people lifted out of poverty here in China over the last 40 plus years, it's really something no other nation has done. We are here on our new adventure talking about the new China. But to look at the new China, we have to appreciate its history. And we have a very rich history here with the Yi people, very colorful outfits, dance and music has always been one of the cornerstones of their culture. And we're going to get treated to a bit of that.
Right, take a look at this. We have a group of elementary school girls standing here with what's called the yueqing. Literal translation is the moon string instrument, and they're ready to wow us. Guys, take it away. Absolutely amazing. How did you feel about that?
What discipline, what talent, and these are elementary school kids. These guys, they are wonderful, and just so ornate. We want to thank them very much for their time and their performance. You know, and really, we always go back to the fact that this area is really one of the poorest prefectures in all of China. And one way they are lifting legions of people out of poverty, they're going into the areas where people have lived traditionally in clay adobe houses, and they are relocating them to more urban type settings like this, where there's running water, electricity, they can get more access to healthcare and have neighbors. Well, our good friend Weilin Tang is just outside one such area, and she's going to bring us up to date on how that has been playing out in this region.
Well, hello, Sean and Taoyuan. We are lucky to be able to catch this Yi family, at their old home before they relocate to their new home next month. And just to give you a little bit background of this family, so it's a family of 6, and it's headed by Mr. Luo Huo Jie, who's 53 years old. His only son is out in another province working, so he lives here with his daughter-in-law as well as 3 grandchildren. And he's been living here for 25 years now. And as you can see right outside here are his very livestock. He's got pigs, he's got chickens.
I think you're...
So this is a rather common way of life at the village. They also have tap water and electricity, from what I've observed. So now let's head inside to check out their home. All right, we are here. Mr. Luo, thank you for having us.
得是了嘛。
欢迎欢迎，辛苦了。Oh, so he's welcoming us to his very humble home. So as you can see, this is how and where Mr. Luo lives. So over there, behind the curtain is actually where he sleeps, his bed. And over here is his dining table where he eats with his family, very lovely daughter-in-law and 3 grandchildren. And if I could get my cameraman to turn over to the other side, as you can see, his living room is right here, and another small bedroom right there. So it's all in a rather contained spot where he sleeps and where he eats. Now, Mr. Luo, you will be moving to your new home next month. What are you most looking forward to? 您就是下个月要搬到新家了啊，就是您最期待的是什么？
那俺们葫芦猪是个月。 俺们葫芦猪呢，的我牙刷是个一部钱，下面的可能呢，第一次嘛2里呱呱，自己说呢马上讲了是做，你就说那没顺的，所以说呢16头可能呢俺活呱呱，没。
他说他现在最期待的就是早点搬进异地被搬迁的集中安置点的新房，因为他这个房子的话就是现在非常简陋，漏雨。 透风，特别黑暗，特别是冬天的时候特别寒冷。对。
So apologies, I forgot to introduce. This is Mr. Xide, who is interpreting, the Yi language into the Chinese language for me. So he said that Mr. Luo really looks forward to moving into his new home because right here at his old home, if you can see his roof, when it rains, it actually leaks. So it's not very safe. There's also no ventilation right here. And it's not very comfortable. And when it's during winter, it gets very, very, very cold. Now, Mr. Luo, what are your future expectations, and plans after relocating? 就是异地搬迁之后，他的这个愿望和展望是什么呢？
那俺们家自家的就把家的就异地搬迁，一直估计俺们家自家葫芦就些个月。
葫芦就那天皮壳在这自己觉得很多些了，我听过。 罗面叔叔觉得儿女了，我人们生活自己觉得玩得起了，
他说他今后最期待的就是，第一是国家的扶贫政策越来越好，第二是农民的收入越来越高，第三是人民的生活越来越美。
So Mr. Luo hopes that, the government's poverty alleviation efforts and policies will get better. He also hopes that, farmers' income and his income will also increase, as well as just people's lives will just get more beautiful. Thank you. So Mr. Luo, in 2018, he has been lifted out of poverty. In 2018, he earned 4,800 yuan in that year itself, which is above China's benchmark of 3,600 yuan per year. But if you think about it, 4,800 yuan a year, that's about about $677 per year, which is almost just close to $2 per day in income. So definitely in terms of sustainability, that will remain something that would be a challenge, right? So another thing that I've observed right here is that it's rather common, for the Yi family to have many children. And apparently the national standard for the Yi people are 3 children. And of course, right now, with the policy of one village, one kindergarten, many young people, young children will get to learn the Chinese language in schools. And we have right here, hello, a little girl. Let's try to hear it from her. 小妹妹，可以介绍您自己吗？跟我们观众打招呼一下。
大家好，大家好。
您叫什么名字呢？
我叫毛妮。
几岁
？3岁。
3岁。All right. So, yeah, so her name is Moni. She's about, I think she told me just now, she's 5 years old. She's a little bit shy. But definitely this is a sustainable effort to ensure that the younger generation of the Yi people, they get to communicate with the outside world. They also get to integrate better with society by learning the Chinese language. And so that's it from us. I would like to thank Mr. Law again, as well as Mr. Chili, for inviting us to your new home.
卡莎莎，谢谢。
So Kasha means thank you in the Yi language. So back to you, Sean and Taoyuan.
Hello, Waylon. That little girl was so cute. When she said what her name was, Sean totally went, oh.
She stole the show.
Tell her we said hi too.
Well, it's wonderful being down here in the Southwest. We're really being introduced to the ethnic minorities throughout China. But now we're going to go up to the Northeast. Wei Ao and Erica, that has long been the industrial base, but it is undergoing a huge transformation. Tell us how the fight against poverty is going in that region.
Yes, thank you, Sean and Taoyuan. We've got a lot to talk about here.
Yes,
welcome to Chongqing, which is known as China's city of automobiles, and that's because China's luxury car brand Hongqi is based right here where we are standing.
Yes, this is the main factory for Hongqi, which is still state-owned enterprise, a subsidiary of FAW Group, and the overall automobile group employs more than 130,000 people.
Wow, that's a lot of people, and really areas like the Northeast need these workplaces because it really provides jobs. And as part of the overall effort, you need jobs to help lift people out of poverty, right?
Yes, I think everyone agrees that China has done, wonders nationwide when it comes to poverty alleviation. For the Northeast, plans like promoting tiny villages, relocating villages, and creating jobs for the poor have proved successful.
Yes, so for more details, let's bring in our esteemed guests. We have Li Yong, Senior Fellow of China's Association of Trade, and Benjamin Qiao, Professor of Paris School of Business. So thank you both for being here with us on quite a seasonable day here, nice and warm. All right, so Benjamin, we go to you first. Statistics say so much here. Tell us about the numbers.
In 2012, in this province of Jilin alone, there were over 1 million poor people. But just using 5 years, the Chinese government managed to cut the number into half. And for the next 5-year period, from 2016 to 2020, it is expected that almost everyone is out of poverty.
And Professor Li, we know that despite all these successful efforts, right, the Northeast is still kind of a little bit struggling in this regard. What have been some of the challenges here?
Yeah, I think basically the challenges coming from 2 or 3 factors or situations. One is location. Many of the poverty-stricken areas is located remotely from where the industrial activities are. Second is connectivity. The infrastructure is insufficient, so that some of the products produced by those people living in poverty cannot be really shipped to the market. And third one, I think it is the lack of self-sustaining financial support. And because of those previous 2 factors, they are unable to, to have sustainable production so that they can improve their financial situation. But all those factors have come to the realization of the government that, they need to take proper measures, to resolve those issues, to lift those people out of poverty.
Absolutely. So financial hardship still something that families, particularly in the countryside, are feeling.
Yes, and our reporter Feng Yilei will bring us this report out of Liangshan Province, where local authorities are addressing the issue.
For uremia patients, life is sustained by dialysis treatment. at least twice a week for the rest of their lives. And it leaves their families with an exorbitant amount of medical bills. Wang Naiyi, who has been receiving dialysis for over 13 years, said he used to worry about where to borrow enough money for the next treatment.
This disease is a bottomless pit, and I couldn't even afford to repay my loans. It's all thanks to the new reimbursement policies for the vulnerable that I no longer need to spend much or worry about the future.
It's a huge leap forward compared to a decade ago, when a uremia patient in Jianchang used to spend the equivalent of more than $10,000 a year. Now they get better detox treatment with smaller financial burdens.
The reimbursement proportion of governmental health care for low-income uremia patients has grown throughout the years to over 92%. Our hospital reduces the remaining costs at their own expense. For example, this patient spent 99,000 yuan and only paid 3,400 herself. That's a discount of more than 96%.
Apart from the reductions, a fast track has been set up for impoverished patients to get treatment before making payments. That has helped to sustain life for many with not only uremia but other deadly diseases. Another beneficiary, Yao Shuangzhan, managed to remove a huge tumor that he had suffered for years because of a lack of money.
It was so painful and I would rather die. Last year, with the fast track in place, I finally had a surgery. It's like giving me a second life. As I gradually recovered, now I can even make a living by working outside my hometown.
But poverty alleviation in healthcare is not all about better treatment and lower costs. Many efforts have also been made in an intangible way, like training these village doctors on their medical knowledge. They will be the ones who work most closely with patients in the least developed areas. The training comes from teams like this one from the affiliated hospital of China Medical University. The program seeks to fundamentally change the high incidence and low awareness of high blood pressure in the region.
We take advantage of our research and talents to train medical personnel in Western Liaoning on their limited and unsystematic knowledge of high blood pressure caring. Therefore, we will develop a professional team that cannot be taken away, that can stop the complication of high blood pressure that costs patients more.
Back to Jianchang, health poverty reduction work also aims to help bring sick breadwinners back to the workplace. Local hospitals have provided several uremia patients from remote villages like Wang Naiyi with job opportunities of working as security personnel at their facilities, so that they can generate income and stay for ongoing treatment. All the measures are aimed at giving these families another chance at life and taking them out of poverty caused by illnesses. Feng Yilei, CGTN, Jianchang in Liaoning Province.
So the good news here, the takeaway for the Northeast, for Dongbei, is that within a year, almost everyone will be lifted out of extreme poverty, and that's incredible.
Yes, and that would be incredibly impressive. And hopefully countries around the world will pull a page from China's efforts and experience here.
Absolutely. Even the United Nations has, shown a spotlight on China to say this is the way to do it. All right, that does it for us up here in the Northeast. Let's send it back to our colleagues Sean and Taiyuan in the Southwest. Hey, guys.
Hey, Erica. Hi, Hui. Certainly a lot going on in terms of poverty reduction in the Northeast as well. But now let's go to our colleagues Lindsay and Jianhua in the Southeast. In the Southeast, right? Where things are a little bit different.
All right, everybody.
Jianhua, we know that the South... Hello, guys? So we know that the southeastern part of China is, relatively speaking, the more developed region of the country compared with the rest of the country. And as a policy to solve China's unbalanced development, a lot of sister cities or similar programs have been set up in this battle against poverty. What kind of role do you think the southeastern provinces are playing in this nationwide campaign to eradicate poverty?
Yeah, Sean and Yuan, and now we're in the southeastern part of China, which is
I think you're right, they are comparatively speaking more prosperous here, but poverty alleviation is on top of the agenda across China, not only in southwest or in northeast, but here as well. And the Chinese authorities are pledging to get rid of poverty by 2020. So this is the end of 2019 already. So this year is critical for China's poverty relief efforts, right, Lindy?
Well, as you mentioned, Jianhua, we've been driving through the southeast of China, and just from what I've seen, certainly a much more prosperous region, but definitely it seems as though China is on track to achieve that goal. Just one example, Sichuan Province, where we are right now, has seen poverty fall from about 1.4 million a few decades ago to only about 200,000 people still living in poverty today.
Yeah, that's right. But for more on China's poverty alleviation efforts, so let's bring our guests. So we have Professor John Gong with the University of International Business and Economics, and also Professor Lin Bo-Chang with Xiamen University. Welcome to you all. So, Professor Lin, let me start with you. So how do you assess China's poverty alleviation efforts, and do you think the standards are lower?
I believe that poverty alleviation is one of the most important targets for Chinese government. An objective to achieve zero poverty by 2020, I believe is achievable. Governments spend tremendous effort. There's an ongoing campaign to reduce the poverty population to zero at this moment, because those right now, those are most difficult ones. We get rid of all easy one earlier. But now the one we're looking at, for example, Sichuan Province, 200,000, those are the most difficult one to deal with. Whether the poverty standard is low or not, well, that's debatable, because it have to be set according to the local conditions. It cannot be, there shouldn't be an international universal poverty line, there's some definition globally. But let me use one example to indicate it, to show that how the China should be able to achieve zero poverty. Universal access to electricity is one of the very important targets for poverty alleviation. According to the United Nations, there's still more than 800 million people without electricity. India alone is close to 100 million. China started the providing electricity to all across China. The campaign started in 2012, something like that, and achieved universal 100% access to electricity by 2050. Right now, even better, now China is combining the poverty alleviation with the clean development, like putting the solar PV in a poverty area and poverty households, let them to get income from policy. Solar PV. So together with all kind of efforts, I believe Chinese government should be able to achieve that.
There's been tremendous achievements already. I mean, as you say, well, as we know, the common figure is that 800 million people have been lifted out of poverty in just over 3 decades. Now, that figure is almost the entire population of sub-Saharan Africa. So my question is to you, Professor Gong. Do you think that China's poverty alleviation strategy is a copy and paste model, or are there other factors at play specific to China that contributed to this success?
Well, I think one of the important elements of what's described as China's development model is its flexibility and its emphasis on adapting to the local characteristics. So I think you should be very careful about copying a model verbatim to other less developed countries, especially in Africa. I think the African countries need to take into account their own local characteristics and combine the lessons that we learn here in China and develop their own model. I think there are differences. Speaking of Africa, for example, people there emphasize a lot on, for example, agricultural development, whereas here in China it's mostly about industrialization. Yeah. So I think transforming rural labor into industrialization, to industrial production, is the hallmark feature of China's development. But we have to be very careful about, for example, to replicate this model everywhere, right? Every country's development model is different. have to take into consideration its local resources, for example, its environmental issues, things like that. So yes, to answer your question, I think we should take the salient elements from what we have learned here in China and combine it with the local characteristics, especially unique development features.
So perhaps different models can be applied in different environments, but definitely incredibly important and key messages to be learned from China's own journey when it comes to poverty alleviation. Well, we'll leave it there for now. I'm sure there's plenty more still coming from our colleagues in the southwest. Let's hand back to Sean and Taoyuan.
Hello, Lindy and Jianhua. Thank you very much. So experimenting different ways in the countrywide poverty alleviation campaign.
Yeah, and we're actually going to spread this out and talk about the entire region. We have our correspondent, Xide Bajaj, live right now in New Delhi. And as the world's two most populous nations, Xide, both China and India, they have worked and they have lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty over the generations. We've talked at length about what China is doing. Can you tell us what's going on in India?
It's been a good last decade. According to the latest figures, India has managed to take out 270 million people out of
We need the hat
poverty.
and the vest.
But let's have a look at the numbers and how things have changed in the last decade or so. What's changed is also the fact that the number of people that is joining the working age has gone up dramatically. We already know that the unemployment figures in India here are down. The growth has also fallen down to 5%. But despite that, the fact that India has managed to remove 270 million people from poverty in the last decade gives an indication that the next few years would be better. In the last couple of months, in fact, we've heard a lot about this, including from the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In the last 5 years, we have seen a massive increase in infrastructure, both social infrastructure and physical infrastructure, from highways, giving people infrastructure to be able to do business. That is likely to actually push the entire economy ahead and eventually lead to poverty going down here in India even further. Much has been said about India's population and how if it keeps rising, it will not be able to get the economic benefits that it can if this population is controlled. The same thing was also mentioned by the Indian Prime Minister on the need to control population so that the economic benefits go to a large section of the population. Here in India, at least, even if there's a number of people joining the working age, also the aging population is rising. Population control is something that probably will happen only through an extremely strict policy. Other than that, the population will have some sort of an impact and a burden on the kind of poverty that you witness in India. What we've also witnessed is healthcare schemes. India has one of the largest healthcare schemes in the world. That is one aspect as well that will in the future help people get out of poverty. But even though the numbers are at 270 million for the last 10 years for people getting out of poverty, the poverty line still remains extremely low.
Xide, thank you very much for bringing us up to date on that. And if you notice, we have a little more accoutrement on. I have the traditional hat of the Yi people. They've been extraordinarily kind to us and let me put it on at this time. And my colleague here looking stunning in her traditional vest.
Yes, a hospitable people.
Very hospitable people.
And joining us right now is a pair of Yi brothers, actually. No, it's actually our guests, Victor Gao and Mr. Chen Jiahe.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you.
So, do you want to start with Mr. Chen?
Yeah, let's talk about the effort to lift this region out of poverty, because with all the extraordinary rich cultural beauty here, we can't overlook the fact that this area, the autonomous regions, have really been hammered. And I went to Liangshan a couple of years ago, and I saw where President Xi lived in a cave for 5 years, and understand where he's coming from when he talks about poverty alleviation, why that is one of the cornerstones of his government. There are areas that are targeted. What can we take away by using the term targeted?
Well, I think for the word targeted, there are actually two meanings. The first is that poverty alleviation always is linked to financial aiding. And if you don't give the money to the specific person who is needing it, you might get corruption, bribing, these kind of things inside. So you have to sweep these things out. So that's one side. The other side is that different regions, first, they need different things. I mean, somewhere might need education, somewhere might need a lot of capital, somewhere might need infrastructure. Another thing is that each region, they have their specific resources, local resources, rich of people, source, art, these kind of things. So you have to do very specific and targeted thing for each region. So that's what targeted means.
Victor, I think zero poverty, it's a grand target. I think no country in the world has ever said in the history of mankind that we're going to completely eradicate poverty. So the grand goal right now, okay, is zero poverty by 2020, but the journey doesn't stop there, does it? Because that's a relatively low threshold.
Absolutely. For China's effort to eradicate poverty by 2020, that's one of the most important human endeavors in history. However, allow me to point out that poverty is as much relative as absolute. So for the people here in this village, they are much better off than what they were 10 years ago or 20 years ago. But then, comparing their today with today in Shanghai or in Shenzhen or in Beijing, they are much worse off. And I would say such kind of relative poverty probably will last for much longer when absolute poverty is eliminated. And I think people here, as well as in the whole country, need to really be very attentive to eliminating poverty, both in absolute terms, but also on the very long term, on the relative term. And no one should really be complacent about poverty, either absolute or relative.
Right, and also there's the important question of making sure that they stay out of poverty.
Absolutely, and they do not lapse back to poverty again.
Exactly. Thank you guys, as always, for your insight.
Thank you.
You know, at the last bit, I'm sorry, Victor, I wasn't focusing too much. I was trying to remember my dance moves because we're going to end this show on a very positive note. We have some of the wonderful women here from this town. We're going to go over as we wind up our broadcast and actually take part. So you'll see the fact I have absolutely no rhythm, but you will see the very last.
And of course, Victor and Daniel are going to be joining us too.
Wow.
So guys, let's step aside.
That will be a lot of fun. 我们都坐在他们的彝族人中间是，对。我来，我在你，你在这个等我啊。
Happy dancing to my colleagues Tao Yan and Sean Calebs in southwest China, and also my colleagues on the route in China's southeast and northeast regions. Tomorrow at noon Beijing time, that's 0400 GMT, join us again as our reporters for our exclusive series New China. Bring us more on China's environmental protection and biodiversity conservation. We'll also take you to the breeding and protection center for the country's most beloved animal, pandas. Now let's recap some highlights of our New China journey.
In 70 years, China has undergone unprecedented transformation. From its old industrial base in the northeast to its new manufacturing powerhouse in the southeast and to its emerging southwest. CGTN offers you a panoramic view of contemporary China. Our crews will travel along 3 different routes and come to you live from dozens of locations and free mobile studios. Join us for an all-inclusive look at China on our TV channel and digital platforms, September the 9th to the 20th. It is New China, then and now, in celebration of the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China, only on CGTN.
Really, you can see here, just totally gorgeous. We've got rice paddy fields behind us. Let's give you a closer look, though, at this amazing, famous rice. This is one of China's time-honored. I gotta try this famous rice. I'm dying to.
Well, you have to. Well, this is just some of the Wuchang rice we've been talking about that dates back 200 years ago. You know how to use chopsticks.
I mean, I'm gonna show my chopstick skills at this point, huh? How true, how true, 非常好吃. And I know what I want to do. What do you want to do next?
Wuchang rice?
Fish.
Fish.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Day 5 of our 12-day adventure. And right now we are here in Panzhihua, an amazing amount of steel, close to 1 billion tons a year. That is more than 50% of all the world's capacity.
Transferring into a more consumption-based and information-based, so that is going to be a transformation. In the future, the steel industry will be the technology, also the environmental protection.
From north to south, from east to west, plenty of opportunities for young people. Well, today we were very lucky. We got a chance to look at the island of Gulangyu. It lies just off the coast of the city of Xiamen. It's known for being home to some of the world's most talented artists and musicians.
As we've been driving into Xiamen, we've been crossing bridges.
Huawei has chosen Xiamen and Fujian Province as the base for their R&D.
You're watching Global Watch on CGTN. Now we turn to Africa. Kenya is hosting the region's largest automotive expo. Auto Parts East Africa seeks to highlight the latest technology
In 70 years, China has undergone unprecedented transformation. From its old industrial base in the northeast to its new manufacturing powerhouse in the southeast and to its emerging southwest, CGTN offers you a panoramic view of contemporary China. Our crews will travel along 3 different routes and come to you live from dozens of locations and 3 mobile studios. Join us for an all-inclusive look at China on our TV channel and digital platforms, September the 9th to the 20th. It is New China, then and now, in celebration of the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China, only on CGTN.